So I wanted to say good morning, good evening, good afternoon to all our friends and all our colleagues from around the world. It is so lovely to see you here today. My name is Liza Pacao with the U.S. Forest Service International Programs, and I'm here today with Dr. Adrina Protection, my colleague and good friend in this passion project we call Where Women Choose to Walk. And before we begin, I do want to encourage all of you to continue to write in the chat your name, your organization, your city, where you're coming from today, and more importantly, what affects women's health in the city where you live or where you grew up. And you'll hear a little bit about that from me later on. And so just a few housekeeping items before we continue. This is a safe space. So if you do not want to participate, if you do not want to turn your video or your microphone on, please know that it's absolutely okay. We are recording this session. If you have comments or feedback for us or for any others, please do privately message us in the chat, me or Adrina, and we'd be happy to address any of your comments, questions, or feedback. Please do, for the time being, until the discussion portion at the end, mute your microphones during the until the panel discussion. And before I turn this over to Adrina, I do want to wish everybody an happy International Women's Day, and our friends in India, happy Holi. Festival of Colors is just ending today. So I'm going to turn this over to Adrina to get us started.
Thanks, Liza. Yes, so welcome everyone to our discussion series where women choose to walk past improving cities and nature. Liza and I are thrilled to be back in this arena after a pretty long hiatus, but it's to help facilitate dialogue that will help us think more deeply about our world. We started this series in 2018, as Liza said, as a passion project. Our goal was to provide a space where people could convene, share stories and strategies, and learn to support one another towards an inclusive community and essentially to build this network. We tackle a variety of topics in the series from international perspectives of women. Our past discussions have focused on topics such as citizen science, labor contentions, community values, motherhood and parenting, justice, and stewardship. Given the UN's International Day of Forests and this year's Spotlight on Human Health, today's topic will focus on urban forests, women's health, and resilience. And this is a very wide and far-reaching topic, and I'm going to start by offering some context from recent research on women's place in this discourse, and then I'll turn it back to Liza and our panelists. So we know that the existence of an access to green spaces can improve human health. And for women and girls, this is particularly true because they're the ones that are most impacted by environmental stressors. According to a study produced by the Women's Environmental Network, 80% of people displaced by climate change are women. And as the threat of climate change increases, so too does the risk for many women and these environmental stressors. So some of the stressors include prolonged droughts, reduced food production, severe weather events, rising temperatures and water levels, and pollutants. There are social, economic, and health impacts associated with these stressors. For example, stormwater pollutants have been associated with physical health impacts, including higher miscarriages in women, premature menopause, and increased risk of birth defects in children. In unequal gender societies, more women die from disaster events than men. After floods, monsoons, and landslides or other resource conflicts, women face higher rates of both sexual violence and health problems. Heat stress and mortality rates for women are higher than men during extreme heat waves. And air pollution is linked to higher rates of miscarriages, pregnancy complications, and stillbirths, and affecting overall women's reproductive health. There are many reasons that women are disproportionately impacted. Some contributing factors include that historically, women have been vulnerable with limited access to resources, restricted rights, with little to no voice in shaping decisions. In some cases, due to their gendered social roles, this already puts them at a disadvantage, and they are more likely to be living in extreme poverty. And 40% of the poorest households in cities are run by women, but less than 2% of them have land tenure or are in leadership roles. On the positive side, empowering women and involving women in tree planting, care, and decision making can help mitigate these issues. According to One Earth, women are better leaders in times of crisis. Women are powerful organizers. They have the solutions. They turn knowledge into action. Women are economic dynamos, and women are the visionaries. And so to help tackle some of these topics today as they relate to sustainable urban forest management and to explore ways to engage women to plant more trees and be advocates in urban forestry, we have an inspiring lineup of panelists for you today. Alejandra Campos from La Paz, Mexico, Nicole Heise from Lima, Peru, and Nicole Urtubis from Ottawa, Canada. And they join us in an array of past international guests as well as participants in our series from around the world. Liza, next slide. I just want to show everyone the distribution. So we've had people from all over the world join us, both as guests and participants. And to start the discussion off, I want to focus on the Philippines and invite Liza to share her personal story from the city where she was born. Liza?
Yes, thank you, Adrina. Again, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. If you're just joining us, happy International Women's Day. As those of you who may have joined us in past episodes of Where Women Choose to Walk, I like to put a little something personal that's related to the topic. And so I want to invite all of you to come with me to the Philippines. And in particular, down in the south, in the bottom left-hand corner, is where my parents were born and grew up. I actually was born up north in Quezon City, the largest city, and I spent 14 years, or rather, sorry, 12 years of my life when I was younger in the Philippines. And then when we moved to the United States, we kept going back to this place where the arrow is pointing to, and that is Surigao City, in the island, the tip of the largest island of the archipelago of Mindanao. And so Surigao City, along with the islands that you see there to the right of it, are comprised of both rural and urban settings. And a lot of women, particularly about 50% of the population are women, but many of the women that live in and around those islands live in stilt houses or in rural communities. So the last time that I was there was 2018. And to the left of the screen, that picture that's lush and green, which is just 10 minutes from downtown Surigao City, which you see on the right, that is my family farm. And we have a cooperative share with a lot of the women that need to provide extra income for their households. And so they take pieces of our land and grow fruits and vegetables, which they then sell to the marketplace. A lot of the men of their households go far afield for jobs, leaving a lot of the women and children behind. And in particular, when the pandemic first started, our family farm became a haven for a lot of the women and children in the nearby villages, as well as those in the downtown area, to find solace, fresh air, not just from the pandemic, but from the heat. So then in December 2021, this happened. Surigao City was at the nexus, rather, it was the point of landfall for a Category 5 superstorm called locally Typhoon Odette, but around the world it was called Typhoon Rai. And I hate to use the word fortunately, but it is true that there weren't very many deaths from the typhoon superstorm. However, 90% of the city and the other islands, because we did experience that first landfall, were razed. Homes were obliterated. There were landslides everywhere. And a lot of the men of the households, in particularly those living in stilts houses, as well as the villages, had to go around all the rubble looking for clean water, food, medicines, as well as generators, petroleum, and any kind of materials that they could use to provide shelter. And often they would be gone not just for hours, but for days looking for that, leaving behind a lot of women. So on the right-hand side, you can see women and children wash their laundry, but that water is not actually a river. It is where a lot of the sewage would come out. This is where they were getting, because in crisis and in desperate times, a lot of their water for just even washing plates. And what is really incredible was that these women started forming uh, a family of sorts, a network, helping each other and lifting each other up as many of the men were gone. But remember, December 2021 was also at the height of the pandemic. And so a lot of the hospitals, the local hospitals, were ill equipped to deal with a lot of the casualties as well as those injured, and many of whom were women. And many of those that were pregnant or had newborns could not even go to the hospitals because a lot of the hospitals, the generators were not working. But in addition, they were treating priority one cases, which were the trauma cases, as well as pandemic or COVID illnesses. So this was the situation in Surigao. And the solace that our family farm provided was also gone, was also obliterated, as our farm is no longer um, around. It was destroyed by the superstorm. But not all is lost, because prior to the superstorm and prior to the pandemic, a lot of systems were put into place. And I'm really proud to be part of the organization, and were included in a lot of the activities when I was there in 2018 by women business led organizations, women run or charities, as well as by schools who involved me in the education and awareness campaigns around urban forestry. And on the right hand side, you'll see a group here, a women led organization, planting mangroves to better strengthen the area. And what you don't see are the young trees that they were planting on the hillsides. In fact, many of those were they planted, as well as the forests that were planted by other organizations, did not experience a lot of landslides during the superstorm. So that gives me a lot of hope. And when the superstorm struck, it was these women led businesses who came to the forefront to really create a lot of supplies to and help provide medicines, as well as do a lot of the cleanup and advocacy work for the city. And with that, I want to turn this over to you guys and to our panelists to start thinking about, what are you seeing in your city with respect to women's health and the environment? And how is your organization's work on urban forestry critical to advancing women's health and discussions and activities themselves? And so with that, I want to turn it over to my good friend and colleague from La Paz, Mexico, on the western side. So it's still kind of early there. Alejandra Campos, coordinator of Water and Urban Sustainable Development Program with the Sociedad de Historia Natural Niparaja. And Ale, if you could please join us and let us know about your city, your situation, what you've seen and what you've done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liza, for having me here. I am excited and I love to share in this space with all of you. As you already said, I've been working like 11 years in the integrated management of La Paz watershed in Iparaja, and I am part of a network in Mexico, call it Cuencas y Ciudades. Thank you, Fondo Mexicano and Rosados. I am passionate for urban forest and nature-based solutions. And I think in the power of the community and the power of the nature, and that together we can do something good for everyone. Also, I am a mother of a 7-year-old kid. I love dance, and I love to spend time with my family. What I see in my city, I think that we have a lot of work to do. All the people need balance to be healthy. Spending time and enjoying surroundings is part of the balance that all people needs for our physical and mental health. In my city, La Paz is a coastal city, and we have plenty of nature place to spend time. We have the ocean, mountains, and dry streams. But also, for women is more challenges, sorry for my English, is more challenging because, as Adriana says, poverty and equality makes women more vulnerable. So uh, for get these places, we need to spend time and spend money because it's far from the neighborhoods. So the option that women has is to go to the park of the neighborhood, but I live in a semi-desertic area, so we don't have enough trees or enough vegetation, and here in my city we have high temperatures, so we need the trees, and we have to save environment to spend time. So we need to, vegetation makes a role important in these places. And by the other hand, especially for women and girls, statistics says that the women feel more insecure in public spaces, especially in parks. So that is another topic important. I, I hear noises. That is another topic important for address.
Hi, everybody. If you could just mute yourself, please. Thank you.
So we need spaces to joy and we must be safe. We must to feel safe. So we need to being woman. For being woman, we run more risk. So we need to address that condition. I work in Paraja, and we are working in planning with the authorities and with other stakeholders in planning the urban areas and the green infrastructure. So we are planning and we are thinking in how have more safe spaces, green areas for the people, for the women, for the neighborhoods, for the community. Also, we are working in the alliance with 3 NGOs to build spaces with vegetation and with workshops and with work of the community to have safe places, and the initiative calls it Urban Oasis. So we have a model that we can have shades and furniture and a learning space and a safe space. And finally, we are working with the USFS in a map to find all the guardians of the nature. And a lot of these people are women. So I've been thinking that we need to work together as a woman in order to have a better place to spend. Thank you.
Thank you, Ale. And that was, really insightful in the work that you're doing, especially around providing shelter for mental health refuge, but also heath refuge for women is really critical, but not just women and children in particular. So I really appreciate that, and we'll hear more from you later during the discussion. I want to turn this over now to my good friend and colleague, Nicole Heise, and she is the president and co-founder of FICUS Peru Desarrollo Socioambiental, a Peruvian NGO dedicated to socio-environmental projects that aim to increase the sustainability and well-being of vulnerable groups in Lima and elsewhere. Thank you, Nicole. Please join us and tell us about your city and what you do there.
Thank you, Liza. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon for those on the other side of the world. Um, yeah, well, so I have been working with ficus, and we have been mostly working in slums. So the picture that you see here, it's how my city looks like in the outskirts a lot. And there's a lot of people there, then usually the housing is not very good and so on. And here we have been working with some communities that live here, and well, woman and man. And actually, when I was invited on this talk, I was thinking like, how have we approached the theme of health, right? And in general, I think urban forestry provides a lot of health benefits. We were talking about, for example, in these areas, landslides. So we have been promoting to have more plantations to secure the terrain. Also, there's a big problem with water and sanitation, and we have been working, for example, on different solutions that can be applied here. And in another community, we did dry toilets. And in the picture that you see on the right, it's, for example, a workshop we did on how to control plagues for the trees that we planted. And it was mostly women that participated in this workshop. And well, like thinking specifically on women's health, today I was like looking at some data, like what are the women health problems in my country, like that affect women very differently, and of course the gynecological problems. And I think that we, like I was thinking, how have we approached that in our work? And I think we have not done it like super directly, but most of the people that go to these communities and work with our organizations are women. So there's like this thing that when you work with women, you can talk about these problems more naturally, right? And I think that has helped a lot. So for example, some women would approach to us and talk about problems they had during their pregnancy, or problems they have during their period. And these are things I think we usually don't talk that much, and it's important that women can connect with each other to talk about these problems. And also now with the pandemic, and I'm gonna talk a little bit more on this, but with the pandemic, we started a bio garden in one of these slums, and most of the people that were there were women. So we were also thinking how these spaces can be safe spaces for women, because in Peru, like 30% of violence against women occur in your household, like with your close partner. So having a safe space near home with nature, I think it's really important, and I think urban forestry can offer that to women's health. And then, so something that I thought it's really clear about women's health and the work we have done is when there was the COVID pandemic, most men would continue working. So they would still go to their work and so on. But most women, they, especially in these slums, not in general in Peru, but with the communities we work, most of these women, they were working at houses like housemates, right? And with the COVID pandemic, because in these areas the COVID was higher, like the COVID infections were higher, they were not allowed to go back to work. Like women that were hiring them were like, no, you can infect us and so on. So most of these women like lost their job. They couldn't go to work. So a lot of women were staying there, and they had problems with, like, of course, economical problems, right? And what they did, this woman not only in the slum we were working, but in a lot of slums around Lima, were that they organized soup kitchens. And so it was like community kitchens that they produce food for the whole community and so on. And I think that resilience that women have, and that Liza was also mentioning, and Adriana, like I think that's also something admirable, and we have to work more on that. In the case of one of the slums we were working, the woman, in order to reduce some costs, they call us and they say like, hey, remember when you did this biogarden? Do you think we can receive again your support to do the biogarden so we can produce some food for our soup kitchen? And we did that. It was really nice to have a space for women, and this is connecting with what I said before, like this biogarden like also offers a space for women to be around women, to connect, to feel safe, and to be maybe away from home where unfortunately it can be a space for violence. And, and then I also wanted to give something personal. So I suffer a lot from migraines and like weird, very weird health problems, like I don't know, maybe gynecological problems and also migraine problems and all this. And I had the experience that a lot of times when I talk with this with my friends, like, or when I research in the internet, apparently these are more probable to happen to women. So I think also my experience of going through these health issues that are only for women, like then you go and meet more women that maybe have health, other health issues, and you understand them, because it's like, yeah, I know you. I know like most men will not understand, but like this is problems that affect women's health, and like having more openness to talk about these problems, I think it's really important. So spaces like this Zoom meeting, I think are really important to understand better what are affecting us as women.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for your work and for sharing your experiences and for being so open in this forum. And hopefully others will feel comfortable as well. Because I mean, I can appreciate what you're saying about that familiarity, having a connection, and being comfortable that you feel other women are able to relate and share their stories as well, and offer guidance or advice and or just a place to talk. And vent. So thank you very much for that, for sharing. I now want to invite Nicole Urtubis from Ottawa, Canada. Nicole has joined Tree Canada as our CEO. She joined last May. She has over 25 years experience in the nonprofit sector. She's lived and worked in over 40 countries, and she is relentless in her pursuit for equity. So Nicole, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thanks, Adriana. Thanks very much. It's such a pleasure being here and joining you virtually today. So thank you, and happy International Women's Day. I just wanted to share a few thoughts, perhaps a bit more generic. And you're right, I have worked internationally in humanitarian assistance and international development, and I have had the great privilege of meeting absolutely extraordinary women. I've learned from them, I've worked for them, and women whose lives might have been or seemed ordinary, but who in fact were extraordinarily resilient in the face of conflict, in wars, in the face of famine or excessive food insecurity, displacement, but also just in the face of everyday life in their community. And women who managed to adapt to very difficult circumstances and to cope and to thrive. And also women who were really brave enough to challenge injustice and power imbalances in their communities, in their households, just and nationally as well, and who really became and were actually formidable agents of change and leaders, and often at great personal cost. So I wanted to mention that today because I have learned so much from them, and I have such respect for them and for their resilience, and it is International Women's Day. And speaking of a leader, I also wanted to mention someone that I admire, but admittedly I haven't met. And she has a very impressive career, and I wanted to mention her today because of not only of who she is, but her link to trees. And her name is Yvonne Aki Sawyer, and some of you may know of her work. But this brings us to Sierra Leone. In 2017, Sierra Leone, Freetown experienced a massive landslide, claiming the lives of 1,000 people. And Sierra Leone had been suffering from climate change and from prolonged droughts. And a lot of people were coming to the city in the hope of a better life, but that also increased urbanization and increased deforestation. So in 2018, Yvonne Akisari decided to run for mayor and she was elected. And she ran on a platform of tackling environmental challenges and difficulties and also job creation, amongst other things. And she launched an initiative called Freetown, a tree town. And she committed to planting 1 million trees, working with communities at the local level, with men, with women, just really a local initiative, and doing that within 3 years. And they have entered their last year, and their survivability rates for the trees are absolutely extraordinary. So I wanted to mention that because I find it really, really inspiring, both because of the urban forestry aspect, but because of the female leadership. I'm an unabashed tree lover. I am happiest in the forest. I am happiest surrounded by nature. And so I was absolutely thrilled when I was invited to join Tree Canada about 10 months ago. And it's been an absolute joy, and I have a fabulous team. So Tree Canada is a charitable organization dedicated to greening cities as well as working in rural environments. And like most cities in the world, about 80% of Canadians now live in urban settings, in urban areas. And we know trees cool our communities and our homes during really hot summers, and that they reduce the flooding during violent storms, and that they are absolutely essential in terms of adapting to climate change. And the benefits are much longer than what I'm saying right now. So the good news is that there's much greater awareness in Canada, and I think all over the world, in terms of the critical importance of trees and urban forests as it relates to climate, but just overall well-being. So at Tree Canada, we work with community organizations, partners, sponsors, various levels of governments, and municipalities throughout the country to really facilitate and to enable a number of projects: tree planting, reforestation of parks, depaving parking lots to bring in greener spaces. The list goes on, and I just wanted to highlight 2 projects. And sorry, I meant to mention we also work with our forestry specialists who are across the country, and a number of them are formidable women in their own rights as well. And so 2 projects that I wanted to highlight, one of them has to do with schools, and where we are currently supporting a project where a school is aiming to transform their grass schoolyard into a farm. And this will be an outdoor classroom. It will engage students in ecological literacy, hands-on connection to nature, and really demonstrate the importance of the importance and the relevance of climate solutions. And this will turn into a vegetable farm for the school. So that's one good thing. And then the other thing is, the other project I wanted to mention, and then it brings us back to health, is the question of we're supporting a project that looks at supporting mental health. So we're working with a community group that is looking at rehabilitating a behavior support unit for people living in dementia. And the project will transform this space into an area where residents can get fresh air, where they get daylight, they get peace, and where they are able to actually get a much more soothing environment from nature, in a place that is visually and physically and it's just more pleasing. And these are 2 projects that I find quite inspiring. So back to health and climate and forests, we intuitively know that parks and green spaces are good for us, that urban forests are good for us, for our well-being, physical and mental. And we've already talked about that. And that we are able to feel more connected to nature and trees, then we feel less stressed. We know that intuitively. But research shows us that that's actually true. And Adriana could pull out a number of references on this topic, and I'm sure she has. But I think what I want to highlight here is that sometimes even the mere presence of parks and public open spaces in neighborhoods, just the presence yields good mental health benefits. And some findings of research are actually demonstrating that there's a lower rate of depression in women. Finally, I'd just like to make the link with equity. We know that access to green spaces, urban forests, is not afforded to everyone everywhere. And that's really, really important to have an informed equity lens as we continue to green cities. As climate change makes cities hotter, and as climate events destroy cities, unfortunately, as Liza just mentioned, it's really important to look at the impact of canopy cover on cities and by neighborhood and by population. And we know that neighborhoods that have lower canopy are often lower income. So there's a real need for us to start looking at urban forests and equity and how it affects different communities. So closing the loop on health, forest, equity, and climate, and all that's connected. At Tree Canada, we're really going to be moving forward on the question of equity, as I just mentioned. Also looking on better data collection and aggregating and disaggregating our impact to really understand how our work is contributing to the benefits in the community and how we can do better. And we're also looking at exploring more innovative ideas that will link climate and equity and forests and gender. And we're also looking at, we are currently also engaged in internal conversation on ethics and how we align our own decisions and our own values at Tree Canada. And finally, Adrina is working on this as well. It's how can we create better opportunities for women to participate in forestry? And how can we lead, well, not lead, how can we work with other women to engage and to mentor? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for sharing that. So now, thank you all. That's a lot of food for thought. And I'd like to open up the discussion for everyone. Does anyone have any questions for our panelists? For us, panelists, do you have questions for each other? So yeah, please feel free. We'd like to open it up now for discussion.
And Adrina, I'm going to unshare right now so we could see who joins us.
Thank you, Liza.
So during this discussion, please feel free to turn on your video and unmute yourselves if you're comfortable, and ask us any question you might have or comments. We invite you to join us, please.
I just want to say something.
Yes, Abby.
I think that, yes, we are, women and girls are vulnerable, but also we are part of the solution. We are doing so much things in all the part of the world. We are doing gardens, we are doing groups of women, we work and fighting with water scarcity. Also in my city, there's a powerful group of women protecting a mangrove area to have a safe place to spend with the family and to have a healthy place for the environmental. So I think that we need to use that force and have this conversation and learn about these examples of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Ale. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Zuzu Bulai. I'm in Boulder, Colorado, but I mainly work throughout the Colorado Front Range with Latino families. First of all, thank you so much, Liza, for organizing this. This is really inspirational for International Women's Day. I'm from Germany, but my husband is Mexican, so I have an affinity to the people that I work with. I'm really intrigued to learn more about the nature-based solutions from Alejandra, because we work with nature-based solutions with the community using mycelium-infused soils to heal the depleted soils and expand healthy soil base around trees, saving trees, as well as building gardens. And in regard to Nicole, I would love to connect with you further, particularly around the schoolyards, because we're currently working with a Latino parent group and an entire school district in Commerce City that is one of the most polluted areas in the Denver metro area, to grow more trees in schoolyards and build community gardens. And I would love to have some other examples worldwide, how that improves and implicates really a lot of savings energetically, health-wise, and so on. Because, we need to make a case to the city governments. Thank you.
Thank you,
Should
Susan.
I just
Lovely.
jump in, Liza?
Yes, please.
Oh, Susa, thank you. Excellent question. And we have a number of school programs across the country, all with different approaches, but they're all locally led. Be happy to connect later. And one of my colleagues is leading on this, and she'd be able to provide a lot more information.
Thank you. I see that Cinnamon. Thank you, Zuza, for that. It's lovely to see you again. And Cinnamon, please.
Yes, I'm gonna add on what Susa asked. So there's a very interesting program which is called Breathe. It's in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and what they're doing is greening schools, and especially in marginalized communities. So it might be good for you to check it out. And my other comment was, I really like the talks, and I know Nicole Hayes worked for a while, which is fantastic. And one of the things that I struggle with is that we always talk about urban forestry and how we want to promote benefits for all in our planning and our policymaking. And by hearing the talks and by realizing that we work with different people from the community and they have different needs and different values, that are we really planning those benefits for all? And how can we embed these findings on how we work with women and children into policymaking, into something that is mandatory for us to do, so we can ensure those benefits for all. And it's more like a question and a reflection that I've been involved in lately, especially thinking of working with Latin American communities in the US, and also by working in Latin America itself. So how do we ensure that we have those benefits for all? And all the findings that are coming up from Mexico, Canada, how can we make it into that arena of the policy and planning documents? So it's something we all care about. Yes, so it's more like an open question for everybody.
Does anybody have any feedback or comments or answers to that very difficult question that we're all, I think, everywhere, global South or global North countries still struggle with? How do we incorporate? Are we even getting better at it, at incorporating that in policies?
I don't think like in policies here in Peru, it's a good example, but I think something that have let us do it like on the ground is incorporating women like in the planning phase and all this. And for that, for example, in Ficus, we start seeing that women, so first, when we invited women, a lot of them were like, they were distracted by their kids, or they cannot leave home because they were watching their kids. So what we incorporated in now, it's like a must, is to have some child caring. So have people doing workshop with the kids, or having some volunteers looking after the kids, so women can participate. And then this, in the long term, like can help women to take these spaces, to feel these spaces as them. So like it's not the men that have done this biogarden or that have planted, and like women feel all excluded, but as they are involved since the beginning, then it's easier for them to take this space to feel it as theirs. And yeah, I don't know if in political, like in policies, that's not the answer, but I think like from the ground, I would say that's really important to facilitate women participation, and something like simple as childcare, like, well, not simple, but incorporating that into your workshop can really make a difference, I would say.
I also want to say that thank you for your question. It's not easy and we don't have the answers, but I think that we have three forces. One is the communication. We need to visualize our all these problems, all this challenge, and that we have to do something about it. Also, we need to work in instruments and politics and have better resources for us. And three, we have to have these places to participate and to share ideas and to be more inclusive. Thank you.
And the only thing that I would add to my colleague is that the importance of demonstrating impact. So if we are able to demonstrate impact with evidence, then it really does contribute even more to the change.
So,
Naomi.
another really great program that's out there with a really diverse assortment of curricula is Project Learning Tree. And that is a federal program. It's available all over the United States. I also think Canadians can access it, and I've accessed it in Switzerland. And so that covers a broad range of subject matter and ages. But one of the things that I've found useful in my own work with communities is that the people that manage the resource, people like myself, urban foresters, that we have to be willing to share our knowledge with communities to create an informed voice amongst residents, citizens, no matter the age. And politicians and decision makers, you know, they're not always willing to listen to those of us that are doing the work, but they want to get reelected. And they are inclined to listen when communities step up with informed advocacy and really demand change and implementation of informed practices that bring health to the urban forest. And if you have a healthy and viable urban forest, that speaks to a healthy and viable community. So we need to be more forthcoming with what we know and ways in which the community can benefit from it and advocate for it. Thanks.
Thank you, Naomi, for that. I totally agree. And the other thing too is to think about your non-traditional partners. I think folks often in the environmental sphere have more leverage when they incorporate economics and human health into the discussion or into the group of stakeholders that you know, you'd like to help support your cause. So with that, yeah, go ahead, Naomi.
And I think that we have to be open to everybody, and bring as many people as we can into the mix. I mean, I've taught so many people just small strategies. I still get emails from those people that I've taught. It's like I have a little army out there doing what needs to be done at the local level. And I don't care what community it is. I don't care the age. the urban forest belongs to everybody.
Beautiful.
And we need to facilitate that ownership so that everyone is a steward.
Thank you, Naomi. Just
So
on
we've-
your point, Liza,
Yeah, go ahead.
and then we'll take Destina's question from the chat, then Tamberly, then Fabiola, and then Nicole, and then I think we'll have to sign off because we have 7 minutes left. But on your point of non-traditional partnerships, Liza, I think what's exciting for me in the last few years, and just inspired by our work together and the workshops that the U.S. Forest Service delivers, is looking at the opportunities for those connections for people that these sort of aligned, whether it's faith-based communities or artists or right across the board to, like, let's say, engineering, just looking at ways that you can connect with these non-traditional partners and reach people on different levels. And we've talked about this lately internally at Tree Canada, but just this idea of being able to kind of connect because you see yourself and different things resonate with you. You see yourself in different aspects, whether you're a professional, a forester, a mother. It's sort of you can reach people on multiple levels, and I think connecting with different groups and thinking about that audience is really important as we think of what Naomi was talking about, is reaching other people and having those voices across the board, not just the environmentalists.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And with that, just a quick 5-second, 10-second answer from our three panelists. From Destina in Ghana, what is the role of the local government authority in the work that you do? And what are some of the major challenges we need to be thinking about when planning similar projects? I'm going to start with Nicole Lima.
Sorry, a little bit distracted here, but can you repeat that question? There was something
Sure. What is
happening.
the role of the local government authority in the work that you do?
Well, that's super difficult. Like here in Peru, we're in a big political crisis. I think like since I was born in a political crisis, becoming more and more evident with the time. And like something that happens a lot in Peru is corruption. So we have near the communities where we are working, there are these areas called lomas, and they are like natural areas. They are not protected because they are fragile ecosystems and so on. And we have been trying to work on also in these lomas, like also recovering these lomas. And what we have seen is that the local government are usually involved in land trafficking in these areas. Like, but there's too much corruption. It's super hard to work with local governments here. We try, especially because of the permisses we need, but I have not find like really the support. Sometimes there's people in the local government, but like we have like this staff rotation, like super high staff rotation. So even when you find like a nice person in the local government, usually they don't have the power or to make a big change. It's super hard. And environmental issues are not a priority, I would say, in the local government. So something that we are trying to do is like to show on social media and so on, like why local governments or why for the politics it should be a priority to focus on the environment. This is still like something not so clear, I would say, in Peru. Like, for example, we were collecting data to protect an area where they're gonna do like a road and destroy like I don't know how many trees. This is still, I think, advocacy is still something we're working on to get the support we need from the local government.
Thank you. Ale?
I just have a good example, and maybe it can help you in your projects. We decided in the Alliance of Urban Oases to make a green area with native plants and furnitures and all the thing, green infrastructure just in front of the windows of the authorities. So they spend time seeing and watching all the change in the area. And now we have a green infrastructure area. We are on the table with authorities planning and doing and creating a better city for everyone, with trees, native trees, and the plant catalog, etc. So I think that maybe it's too hard to convince, it's too hard to inform to authorities, but we can do it if there are a bit of willing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ale. And I'm really sorry we are out of time. So I'm going to ask Tamberly to take us to conclusion, and then I will, with the concluding remarks, and then I will just wrap this up.
Oh, Liza, thank you so much. It was more of a question about, are there specific trainings and workshops among our panelists here that are solely for women, so they be focused upon building skill sets and really propelling women's empowerment and confidence? I mean, I felt that truly in this workshop in which I was engaged this past weekend, because then we move out into our own communities with this level of confidence and being able to better communicate with our men allies. And thank you so much. I think it was Ryan, who I just saw, who really is promoting women's empowerment. And so I'm wondering if there are any of these types of workshops that then link back into our ally communities and also engage our allies outside of that women empowerment system. And thank you for this, Liza. This has been incredible. You and Adrina, thank you.
Thank you, Tamberly. And I think that's something to think about, and maybe we can continue to share with each other online, as well as on some of our groups out there. I do want to, I know we are at time and we have a lot to say to each other, but we will share this recording and will be up on our YouTube channel by the end of the week. Do join us on the Facebook groups. If you have a Facebook account, we can continue the discussion there. I know that Ale and Nicole Lima and Nicole Ottawa would be so happy to continue this discussion. I know I can speak for me and Adrina that that's also the case for us. And with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Our next episode will be in a few months. We will send out information on what the topic will be. Thank you so much for joining us and for enriching the discussion. So many stories today and so many thoughts and great links in the chat. So thank you everybody for joining. Adrina, any final words?
No, just we're very grateful for our panelists, for your time and consideration and putting your thoughts together and sharing your experiences and stories, and to, of course, all the participants that signed on today. And as Liza said, please join us online, continue the conversation. If there's anything from today that you would like, specific links, things like that, feel free to email us as well, and we can send those along.
Thank you, everyone. Happy Women's Day.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.